Welcome back to another explainer. Today, we're dissecting an absolute masterclass in corporate structuring and legal maneuvering. Now, this isn't your typical story of loud courtroom battles or dramatic public shouting matches. No, it's a brilliant, quiet chess game. We're going to see how a seemingly powerless daughter completely dismantled a stolen corporate empire and reclaimed her mother's legacy without ever raising her voice. It is a profound lesson in the sheer, undeniable power of paperwork. Let's get right into it.
Okay, let's set the scene with our inciting incident. Imagine standing in a building your own mother built from a rotting inn into literally the finest hotel on the coast. That was the Harbor Crown. Gabriel Townsend, at 36 years old, attends the hotel's 40th anniversary gala at the hesitant invitation of her father, but her stepmother, Vivian Hale, who had spent the last 16 years rebranding the hotel and erasing Gabriel's mother's name from its history, well, Vivian decides to make a spectacle. Right in front of wealthy investors, powerful board members, and eager reporters, Vivian points at Gabriel and utters these exact words. "Security, remove her. She's not family." Just the ultimate public humiliation. For 16 long years, Gabriel had let her stepfamily rewrite history. She'd allowed her silence to basically become a fact. But that night out in the cold, something shifted. She didn't scream. She didn't make a scene. Instead, she drove to a dusty storage unit she hadn't opened in over a decade. Which brings us to the core question of this whole story. How do you take back an empire with just a pen? Well, Gabriel was about to answer that through the sheer, unarguable power of forensic bookkeeping. Part 1. The Cedar Box Secret. Discovering the Independent Trustee. Inside her late mother Diane's storage unit, Gabriel opens a cedar box that had been sealed since her mother's death. And she doesn't find sentimental keepsakes. She finds a deliberate, highly strategic breadcrumb. Tucked right under the lid was a single business card from Marion Webb, an independent trustee. Now, to Gabriel, who happens to be a real estate lawyer, this was a massive revelation. It meant her mother didn't just leave a simple will that her husband could easily manipulate. She left a heavily protected trust managed by a corporate fiduciary. In plain terms, a corporate fiduciary is an objective third party legally bound to protect the assets. They're completely immune to family drama, guilt trips, intimidation, the whole shebang. Diane knew exactly what she was doing. Along with that card was a letter. Diane knew her husband preferred peace over what was right, and she knew someone would eventually exploit that at Gabriel's expense. The letter contained a really powerful instruction. Don't fight them, sweetheart. Just stop renting them your silence. Wow, right? This wasn't just comfort. It was a clear directive. It completely shifted Gabriel's mindset from surrender to action. She wasn't handed a weapon, she was handed a choice, and it set the stage for a flawlessly executed legal counterattack. Part 2. The OpCo-PropCo Trap. The Illusion of Ownership. To really understand how Gabriel executed this takeover, we have to look at the legal architecture her mother built. Diane had engineered an OpCo/PropCo split before she died. In corporate structuring, this is basically a legal firewall. It ensures that whoever runs the daily business operations, the OpCo or operating company, literally cannot touch the physical real estate, the PropCo or property company. The operating company merely leases the space. They are separate entities entirely. It's like an invisible fence that keeps the people running the business from ever truly owning the bricks and mortar. And this structure, it completely shatters the illusion Vivian Hale had built. Vivian and Richard's Hale collection was merely the OpCo. They ran the hotel, booked the rooms, paid the rent. Legally speaking, they were just tenants. The PropCo, the actual landlord who owned the land and the bricks, was Diane's trust. And the rules of that trust dictated that Gabriel would inherit full unilateral control over it on her 36th birthday. So Vivian was essentially painting the walls of a house she was just renting, completely oblivious to who held the actual deed. Crazy, right? To make this legally ironclad, Marion Webb revealed the trust also held $17 million in reserve capital. Diane had let this grow quietly in conservative funds for 16 years. Why does this matter? Well, in corporate warfare, the easiest way to defeat an opponent is to bleed them dry with legal fees or force them to mortgage their assets just to survive the fight. But this cash reserve was a literal war chest. It meant Gabriel's property was safe, fully funded, and totally impervious to financial starvation tactics. Part 3. The Ticking Clock. A $40 million gamble. But Gabriel couldn't just sit back and process all this. Marion Webb informed her of a massive impending financial disaster orchestrated by the stepfamily. The Hale Collection was attempting to secure a staggering $40 million commercial loan for an expansion up the coast. The problem? To get the loan, they were using the Harbor Crown real estate as their primary collateral. Think about that for a second. They were pledging a building they absolutely did not own to a bank. That is essentially committing bank fraud by claiming a landlord's property as your own.
So this created a ruthless ticking clock. Gabriel had exactly a 3-week window to intercept this financing. The loan was already in underwriting. If she waited until week 3 and that wire cleared, her mother's property would be tangled up in years of messy, incredibly expensive courtroom battles just to untangle a fraudulent lien with a major bank. She had to act immediately before the lender finished their title review and the damage became completely irreversible. Part 4. The 3 fatal mistakes. The forged amendment. Sensing Gabriel was coking around and asking questions, the Hale Collection's general counsel, a guy named Gregory Pace, totally panicked. He sent Gabriel a cease and desist letter attached to a supposed trust amendment to scare her off, which was a spectacularly bad move against a forensic real estate attorney, because his arrogant fabrication fell apart under her review in about 90 seconds. First, he tried to amend an irrevocable trust 5 years after Diana died. By definition, you can't change an irrevocable trust, especially not for a deceased person. Second, it lacked the independent trustee's legally required signature. And third, the forgers actually slipped up on their own lore. They used Vivian's rebranded word foundation instead of Diane's original word fund. Pace had literally just handed Gabriel written proof of fraud. Part 5. The silent legal checkmate. Paperwork over shouting. Gabriel didn't want revenge. She wanted the truth on paper. She chose paperwork over shouting. Sitting calmly at her kitchen table with a cup of coffee, she executed a precise, brutal sequence. Step 1, she signs the acceptance of trusteeship, taking sole legal control. Step 2, she formally ends her father's interim co-trustee role. Then come the knockout blows. Step 3, she sends the certification of trust directly to the lender's counsel, instantly freezing that $40 million loan by proving the borrower didn't own the collateral. And finally, step 4, she issues a notice of default to the Hale Collection. Their lease strictly required the owner's permission to rebrand, a rule they'd been violating for years. They were totally trapped. Just like that, a decade and a half of power dynamics inverted in a single morning. By 11:42 a.m., Gabriel's phone began to light up. The 16 years of silence she had endured reversed entirely. She received 68 panicked voicemails from her father, her stepsister, her stepmother, and their lawyer. The bank had pulled the loan. They were realizing in real time that they had just lost their stolen empire. And Gabriel's response to all this? She just calmly drank her coffee and deleted every single voicemail. Part 6. Reclaiming the Legacy. The True Landlord. That night, the spectacle came directly to her. Vivian, Richard, and Brooke showed up at Gabriel's apartment at midnight, ready to threaten her and demand she lease them the business. But they found a woman who was absolutely no longer playing their game. Gabriel slid the forged amendment across her kitchen table, completely exposing the fraud. She revealed that the investors from the Gala had already been sent the true ownership documents. When Vivian tried to pull her usual loud, victim-playing performance, reminding Gabriel she wasn't family, Gabriel simply agreed. She looked right at her and said, "I'm not family. I'm the landlord." Boom! With the fraud exposed and the default active, Gabriel legally evicted the Hale era. Vivian and Brooke walked away rather than become subservient tenants in a building they had pretended to own. And the best part? Gabriel didn't take a single dollar of their personal money. She just took back what was always hers. Diane's original brass plaque went right back up in the lobby, the charitable fund was restored, and Gabriel preserved the real estate exactly as her mother intended, managed by the people who actually cared for it. It really leaves us with a powerful final thought. Gabriel's story proves that the strongest boundaries aren't built on anger or shouting. They're built on knowing exactly what is yours, down to the fine print. Whether in corporate structuring or your personal life, what is built on your silence only stands until the day you finally decide to stop renting it out. Look at the structures in your own life and ask yourself, are you the tenant or are you the landlord?